Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Because he had to fight alone with so many soldiers, all of whom were great warriors, the serpent with 5 hoods became very weak. Seeing that his most intimate friend was weakening, King Puranjana and his friends and citizens living within the city all became very anxious. Kindly repeat after me. Because he had to fight alone.
Because he had to fight alone.
With so many soldiers.
With so many soldiers.
All of whom were great warriors.
All of whom were great warriors.
The serpent with 5 hoods.
The serpent with 5 hoods.
Became very weak. Seeing that his most intimate friend was weakening, King Puranjana and his friends and citizens living within the city all became very anxious. Purport. The living entity resides within the body and struggles for existence with the limbs of the body, which are referred to here as citizens and friends. One can struggle alone with many soldiers for some time, but not for all time. The living entity within the body can struggle up to the limit of 100 years with good luck. But after that, it is not possible to prolong the struggle. Thus, the living entity submits and falls victim. In this regard, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has sung Vridha Kala Aula Sabasukha Bhagala. When one becomes old, it becomes impossible to enjoy material happiness. Generally, people think that religion and piety come at the end of life, and at this time one generally becomes meditative and takes to some so-called yogic process to relax in the name of meditation. Meditation, however, is simply a farce for those who have enjoyed life in sense gratification. As described in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, meditation, dhyana, dharana, is a difficult subject matter that one has to learn from his very youth. To meditate, one must one must restrain himself from all kinds of sense gratification. Unfortunately, meditation has now become a fashion for those who are overly addicted to sensual things. Such meditation is defeated by the struggle for existence. Sometimes such meditative processes pass for transcendental meditation. King Puranjana, the living entity, being thus victimized by the hard struggle for existence, took to transcendental meditation with his friends and relatives. So looking back at some of the previous verses, this is ongoing description of, in a narrative way, Narada Muni trying to explain the predicament of all living entities actually here in the material world, who are faced with the hard struggle of life. It is referring here to the serpent with 5 hoods. So Prabhupada was explaining in the previous verses Hare Krishna. Yeah. The different life airs within the body. And how they can become disturbed. They become disturbed, especially at the moment of death. So, from birth to death, actually, janma, mrityu, janma, mrityu, jara vyadi, birth, death, old age, and disease are identified by our acharyas in Shastra as being the 4 main problems of life that everyone is faced with, that everyone has to deal with. And ultimately, as it is explained here, if one is having to fight with many opponents, ultimately one will become defeated. So, this is the hard lesson which some people only learn in their old age, and even in their old age cannot quite understand what is taking place. So Prabhupada is referring here also to the fallacy. Fallacy means wrong understanding that spiritual life is meant for later on in life. In old age, where we have more time, maybe we can take the spiritual life. But actually, Shastra is telling us differently, because it's not everyone that lives till he is old. Many people die in their youth as well. So we don't know when this moment of death will come, but there's that saying, as sure as death, no one can evade the hard struggle for existence, and therefore, so as not to be deceived, generally people who have not practiced spiritual life, they become very morose, very anxious, very sad, very disappointed actually in their old age, and rightly so, because all of their efforts their accumulating of wealth, for those who have been, whose karma was that they could make money, they begin to understand that all of that will be lost. And whatever strength they had in their youth or middle age to enjoy life, so-called enjoy life, that is gradually in old age becoming more and more difficult, to the point of becoming actually impossible. So, brahmacharya, tapasya brahmacharyena samena cha. One of the important instructions that we find in Shastra. Tapasya, life is especially meant for austerities, or at least discipline. Only in the human form of life one can begin the process of learning discipline. Discipline means actually austerity, just like people who prepare for the Olympics. They will work and prepare for years, actually. The Olympics happen every so many years. I mean, not every year. So a lot of hard work and struggle for some material goal. What to speak of the highest goal, which is that of overcoming once and for all the problems of birth, death, old age, and disease. So therefore, one should begin at a very early age to practice spiritual life, so that one will not be, actually even in old age, Srila Prabhupada nicely explains that for a Vaishnava, for a devotee, old age becomes like an impetus. One becomes opposite of what happens to materialistic persons who become totally disillusioned and their consciousness completely down, discouraged, and develop a lot of anxiety as well. But for a devotee, the opposite actually happens. As one grows older, and we can speak from experience a little bit, this body is getting older. Srila Prabhupada often would refer to his old age, and he would tell his young disciples, because practically speaking, all of Prabhupada's disciples were very young. Like 50 years of difference practically, And Prabhupada would say, now I'm an old man and so many problems. Don't ever think this will not happen to you. So for a Vaishnava, for a devotee, because we know that by becoming more absorbed in activities of devotional service, one can more easily transcend the various inconveniences. This body naturally creates all kinds of inconveniences for us, but we can learn to become less disturbed, to the point of not at all being disturbed, by absorbing ourselves, our mind, our body, our senses, in various devotional activities. And that is the difference between someone who is in proper knowledge, Vaishnavas, devotees, they know exactly what is taking place, and they're not afraid of that ultimate moment, which everyone is afraid of, the moment of leaving one's body. So it is based on knowledge. Human form of life is meant to cultivate knowledge, to cultivate specifically, especially, transcendental knowledge. Raja Vidya, Rajaguhyam Pavitram Idam Uttamam Pratyakshava Gamam Dharmyam Susukam Kartam Avyayam. This knowledge, only this transcendental knowledge of who we are, only this transcendental knowledge of devotional activities, devotional service to Krishna, can actually make one experience actual happiness, isn't it? The performance of devotional activities, the performance of devotional service, because it is situated on the transcendental platform, reinstates the living entity in his original constitutional position. So therefore, regardless of what will happen or what is happening to this body, and of course Srila Prabhupada was and remains our ideal example of that personality who in old age, even moments, isn't it? Even moments before leaving his body, Srila Prabhupada was totally, continuously fixed on Krishna. I mean, giving us purports till his very last breath, practically speaking, and purports full as before, actually, unchanged. Prabhupada's sharpness and clarity, we see that in the last few days. Srila Prabhupada was, when he was speaking about how to especially overcome the lower modes of nature, Rajagun and Tamagun, how to become situated in the mode of goodness, which will facilitate and enable one to actually rise above that mode of goodness. And in this way, in this way, Prabhupada was explaining how the whole system, the whole social Vedic system is meant to gradually bring individuals, bring people towards that mode of goodness. The whole system of Varna and Ashrama, as we were mentioning earlier, from Brahmacharya life, from early life, we know in the Vedic culture there should be we could say, planned segregation. It is wanted segregation between boys and girls, because the goal of life is self-realization, and when there is undue mixture, when there is no proper regulation, when there is no proper discipline in our own lives and within society, then it leads to all kinds of unhealthy habits, unhealthy, unwholesome relationships, which lead to so many problems. So we have that great fortune as devotees to, we could say, every day tap in this transcendental knowledge which is given on every page of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, to remind us what is the goal of life and to help us achieve that goal of life by becoming fixed in activities of devotional service. So many examples are given. Many stories are related in the Bhagavatam to help us put into application actually some of these, all of these different instructions which are presented. So today we have a special day. Actually, there are a few Rath Yatras happening today, apparently. On the 2nd of January, 2016. So ISKCON Manglore is can boast of being one of the first temples celebrating Lord Jagannath's Rath Yatra this year. And the whole, since it is for us today Rath Yatra, so we can just say a few words regarding how important is Rath Yatra. The whole purpose for the Rath Yatra festival is actually to highlight and give us some insight as to what happens when one cultivates this transcendental knowledge or transcendental understanding of devotional service. We are, of course, able to remember Lord Chaitanya's pastimes in Jagannath Puri. The festival of Rath Yatra attracts so many people actually from all over, has attracted since thousands of years people from all over India and now from all over the world. And main message, of course, of Rath Yatra is, as exemplified by Lord Chaitanya, when we cultivate this transcendental knowledge, then we become situated, our consciousness becomes, excuse me, situated on a totally different realm, totally different platform. Krishna consciousness is that platform which enables one to, we could say, transcend the bodily dualities of this material world. We were just reading yesterday, I think, yesterday in the Bhagavatam class about Advayam, the difference between material existence and spiritual existence. In the material world, we are constantly confronted with the dualities of matter and spirit. There's conflict, which is, any conflict creates anxiety, creates difficulties. Whereas in the spiritual world, and we can actually begin to experience that spiritual world, we can begin to experience and live within this spiritual realm as exhibited by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and by all exalted devotees that have taken up this process. whereby because of this higher consciousness that one develops, one becomes, and that's the quality or the nature that is there in the spiritual world, there's no duality. One is completely immersed and completely in harmony with Krishna, with Krishna's thoughts, Krishna's desires. And therefore, that's why the spiritual world is described as the place of Chintamani Dham, or Vaikuntha, where one does not experience any kind of anxiety because of being totally absorbed in the devotional service of the Lord. So, in a similar way, although we are still here in the material world, by taking part in such activities, such festivals as Rath Yatra, it's up to each individual. We can choose to absorb ourselves in such activities which will actually help us become relieved from the material anxieties that are there every day. Or we can just choose to not absorb ourselves and remain caught up in the dualities of the material world. So as devotees, Srila Prabhupada gave us the example of being totally absorbed in preaching Krishna consciousness and being very active always in the service of the Lord, and that is how we can become, we could say, disconnected, disassociated with the dualities of the material world, and therefore such festivals as Rath Yatra are giving us that opportunity. I'm looking at all the windows today, and I can see outside. I mean, it makes a big difference. Srila Prabhupada, he was always giving great emphasis, because that's one of the qualities in the spiritual world. Pavitram. Pavitram idam uttamam. We just mentioned this verse. Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam, Pavitram. Pavitra, purity, purity, cleanliness, cleanliness, internal cleanliness, external cleanliness. So these are important, very basic, essential qualities that, of course, are eternally manifest and present in the spiritual world. And because we are meant to prepare ourselves to go to the spiritual world, we need to manifest, we need to develop these same qualities which are there in the spiritual world. So every day actually we have this opportunity by being engaged, by absorbing ourselves more and more in devotional activities, and in this way that's what the Kaviraj was telling, actually. Kaviraj, who was attending Srila Prabhupada, that because this personality is totally, his consciousness is totally immersed in Krishna, for a normal person it would be unbearable to tolerate, the inconveniences and the pains that are there. Normally, in the days before leaving one's body, if one is in, generally one is in critical condition, the pain becomes very unbearable. But if one is practiced in this process of devotional service, then one's mind will be properly situated. So, these are a few thoughts in relation to our text today. I'll just wind up by, that's more water. Yes. So here was the verse that we, it's okay. Because he had to fight alone with so many soldiers, all of whom were great warriors, the serpent with 5 hoods became very weak. Seeing that his most intimate friend was weakening, King Puranjana and his friends and citizens living within the city all became very anxious. Any comments or questions? In the system of Varnashram, everyone is meant to come to the mode of goodness. And?
Will it happen in the same lifetime?
Is it true? Is it really true? Well, the idea is that not everybody will come to the mode of goodness, but the system is facilitating, helping. That is the best system, actually the only system, because it's Krishna's system. It is very scientifically arranged that when we live a more simplified lifestyle, when we associate as the system allows, we associate with saintly persons, when those who are in leadership position are saintly, even the king, they are Rajarshi, they are saintly kings. And when the first primary goal of life is not, as it is today, making money, or we call economic development, but rather self-realization, then this, see, majority of people in any society are innocent. Prabhupada explained, majority of people, they will go right or they will go left according to the leadership. So if there's good leadership, people will be directed, will be supported, will be helped to engage in activities in the mode of goodness. Not everyone may be immediately situated in the mode of goodness, but the whole system will facilitate, will help individuals to become more and more situated in the mode of goodness, because the whole system of Varnashram is meant to facilitate individuals and society in general. Leaders, they will build temples, for example. Those who have money, the Vaishyas, they will also be building facilities for pilgrims, for example, to visit holy dhams, etc. So the whole social arrangement will be such that it will be easier for the vast majority of individuals within society to make some tangible steps towards the mode of goodness. And because we don't have such leadership, we don't have such understanding, such direction, today's life, everyone is making tangible steps towards a hellish existence. I mean, they're living, majority of people are living totally in ignorance, engaged in all kinds of sinful activities, so therefore their future is very dark, very grim. Whereas the future of those who live in this kind of society. And that's why Srila Prabhupada and our previous acharyas also wanted that we make an endeavor to create this kind of social situation, social system, which is Varnashram society, Daiva Varnashram society, so that people can have a chance, individuals can have a chance by being guided in this way by qualified Brahmanas, qualified Kshatriyas, qualified Vaishyas. So, depending on the individual effort from persons within society, one will have the maximum, best opportunity actually to become, if not fully self-realized, at least make advancement from the lower modes of nature to the higher mode, means the mode of goodness. And so in this way, those who are not fully successful, because they will have performed many pious activities, isn't it? So they will get a better opportunity. They'll get a good birth in their next life, and they'll be able to continue in this way. But if we continue with the present very demoniac society, which is totally based on principles of adharma, then people have very less chance, practically no chance, of being successful in their life, and their future is very, very dark. Any other? So today, Rath Yatra is that day where the Hare Krishna devotees give an opportunity for many people to have darshan of Lord Jagannath and to maybe at least for a few moments come out of Maya, because they will see, hey, what's going on? They will see a big chariot and they will see all kinds of devotees, quite a few of them from foreign countries. Today also, we have devotees coming from different countries. And so it's like, an event which people, of course in India people already know a lot about Lord Jagannath, but still there are many people who, regardless of their position, they will benefit by hearing the holy name, by having darshan of Lord Jagannath, and that is our main purpose, our main business as devotees, is to give as often as possible and to as many people as possible the opportunity to awaken their Krishna consciousness and make some tangible advancement in spiritual life. Yes?
Maybe if there is a chance today to give speech and invite.
If there's a chance to give speech and
to invite people to visit Varnashram College. Because all city people.
Yes, yes. Well, it can be not only tomorrow, it can also be today. Today and tomorrow. Yes, that's a nice way for people to know more about how, actually somebody was telling this, we have our Gogram Yatra that's going on in, well now it left Telangana and has entered Andhra in Chirala area. So we have devotees, they have covered already 42 villages. The statistics are there actually on our Sri Surabhi campaign. How many villages, how many books, how many plates of prasadam, like that, They're keeping some record. And so some of the comments that were received was that actually people, well, different villages. Some villages are more in the mode of goodness, like the ones they did yesterday, the program. And some villages, well, I was mentioning the other day, where you have 90% of the people who are drunk, you know, and one village 100%. But some of where people are a little more conscious, you know, they're coming and saying that, oh, we're very thankful, you know, they very much appreciate the devotees. We don't get this, we've not seen this since so long, you know. We heard about these kind of programs from our parents or from our grandmother, but many people have not seen before, you know, devotees chanting and explaining, giving some discourse as well. So, yes, our Varnashram College, which is starting this month, is especially giving that opportunity for people to experience, first-hand experience in living with cows actually, and working with the land, etc. like that. So yeah, we'll try to do that. Jai Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jai Srila Prabhupada ki.